But it's never been for me a problem to move abroad. Actually, for me, it has been sometimes even more difficult to return back home, and the cultural clash comes when you
Okay.
move back home and realize again that okay, people work like this in Finland, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's kind of, you have to adjust and adapt back to something that you've left.
Welcome to WITT. Hi, I'm Megan. I talk with founders, investors, and operators working in tech. My aim is to inspire you with their stories and perspectives. Through this podcast, I want to amplify the voice of women working in tech. If you want to support WITT, then make sure you follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Then you won't miss any future episodes. Today we're joined by Krista, who is the community lead at the Growth Collective, a membership organisation focused on helping middle-sized companies to grow. She is particularly focused on helping young people find their voice. Let's do this. Hi Krista, welcome to WITT. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Hi Megan, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Awesome. I'd love to kick off our conversation with a lightning round. Is that okay?
Sure, let's do it.
Let's go. First question, coffee or tea?
Coffee?
Makes sense. And then second question, planner or crammer?
Planner.
Yeah. And then who would you say is the best person you've met through networking?
There's many.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, best person. I don't know if I can now come up with one person. The President of Finland.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's good. Yeah, definitely. And then one thing you would like people to know about the Growth Collective.
One thing.
Just one thing.
That we work with the bravest and most courageous companies in Finland.
Nice. And then what's one person that you would like to meet that's either living or dead?
Wow. One person. Michelle Obama, maybe?
That's a good one. She's on my list too.
Yeah.
And
she's
then what is a favorite weekend activity with your family?
Maybe going to the forest for a walk and having picnic with us. Yeah.
And picking
we really
mushrooms.
like the forest. Yeah, we're not good, or we're not great at picking mushrooms. My mother-in-law usually takes care of that for us.
Fair enough.
But yeah, the forest is a nice place.
Very true, it is. And then what would you say is the most important skill in your job?
Most important skill. Curiosity, maybe?
Curiosity.
Or open-mindedness.
Okay.
Something like that.
Nice. And then perfect work day for you starts with what activity?
What work-related activity? Maybe a small time to just get prepared for the day for myself to then do it.
Okay.
So having that small time window to
like you
plan
time
ahead. Yeah.
Right? You time. Yeah. And then what is your go-to GIF?
Well, I have to confess I'm not too big in using GIFs, but one that comes to my mind is there's a man kind of splashing golden confetti, which I like.
Fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. Why not?
Yeah.
And then the last question for the lightning round, which is if you had to describe your career in 3 emojis, what would they be?
3 emojis to describe my career. Yeah, I've done many different things in my career. So I started out with working in politics and administration and the EU. So maybe the first one would be an EU flag.
Okay.
Emoji. And then the second one would definitely be one with people, or a group, an emoji with
Yeah.
several heads.
Yeah.
Um, that's been a big part of, I've facilitated groups, for example, for 20 years, and facilitated workshops and discussions. So a group emoji. And then maybe this hand that is held out like this with a
Okay.
heart.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely.
Yeah.
Very nice. Good emojis. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A real mixture. So that's
Yeah,
nice.
it's a mix. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering my lightning round questions. I want to move on and start with your story, right? So
Okay.
you grew up in Finland, but
Mm-hmm.
you have also worked in France and Belgium and Germany, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I've
So I
always
want to get a better understanding of how those like experience and that experience shaped who you are today.
Yeah, I think from a very early, well, to start with, I'm from the countryside in Finland, from a very small place in the middle of the forest and fields.
Hmm.
And from a quite early age, I had the kind of the curiosity and the drive to see something else and see something more.
Hmm.
So already when I was in high school, I decided to go for an exchange year to France, and went to live with a French family for a
Ooh.
year and went to a local French high school in the north of France. And that shaped me a lot. That was a very kind of formative year for me, and a year where I probably, grew up a lot. I was
Hmm.
17 when I left, and 18 when I came back home. So that was definitely a big adventure. And now when I have kids on my own, I feel that, as a 17-year-old, that was pretty brave
Hmm.
to do. So that's something that I'm still very proud of. And later on, I've worked in Brussels, and then lived for 4 years also in Germany. Nice experiences. I think it's always so useful and insightful to get a bit of a different perspective on your own bubble in a way, or your own cultural context, or what you're used
Yeah.
to. So it has definitely kind of opened up different perspectives, allowed me to meet many different people from
Hmm.
many different backgrounds, and been very, yeah, definitely experiences that I cherish a lot, and always will have with me.
Definitely. I totally agree with kind of moving around and
Hmm.
traveling to lots of different countries, shaping your viewpoint and views
Yeah.
of the world. So, totally agree.
Yeah, and
Very important
yeah,
part.
and it shapes also your view on where you're from and
Yeah,
on Finland.
definitely.
I've always, all the 3 times that I've moved abroad, it's always been my own drive to
Hmm.
go. And of course, you usually talk a lot about, cultural clashes and so on, but it's never been for me a problem to move abroad.
Hmm.
Actually, for me, it has been sometimes even more difficult to return back home, and the kind of the cultural clash comes
Ah,
when you
okay.
move back home and realize again that, okay, people work like this in Finland, or,
Yeah.
it's kind of, you have to adjust and adapt back to something that you've left. So that's been interesting to see also.
Definitely.
There's been, I think I've learned a lot or more about Finland during the times I've been living abroad
Hmm.
compared to here, because of course also when you're living abroad, you're kind of an ambassador of your country, and people ask
Yeah.
you, and you have to kind of know a lot about your
True,
country
true,
as
true,
well.
true.
Yeah.
I totally agree. It's very important to kind of understand. You get a better perspective of what your country is to
Yeah,
other countries as well, which is quite
definitely. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about what you do now, right?
Okay.
So you
Hmm.
are I want to get a better understanding, because obviously I came to see you at your office.
Yeah.
But I want to know, like, what is the Growth Collective? Like, why are you so passionate about helping these like middle companies to grow?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's what we do. So we're a movement bringing together mid-sized companies and company executives in Finland. And we believe, of course, as I said also earlier on, that in our viewpoint, we think we work with the most courageous and most promising mid-sized companies in Finland. And what we do is really, we want to promote a growth mindset for the whole of Finland. We want to increase the willingness and courage to grow in this section. So for the mid-sized companies, we help them with topics like growth, renewal, internationalization, so that we can build a better Finland altogether. So we really have also a very strong kind of Finland mission behind our work. And you probably know, I mean, we haven't had growth in Finland in many years. There's been some tough times, and we want to help change that narrative a little bit, that we speak about ourselves. Traditionally in Finland, I think we think that we don't have the means or the capabilities or the know-how or the resources or the capital to do things, and we really want to show that we can do things, and it's all about taking actions and doing small steps at a time and thinking big and bravely, and by that we can really make great things happen, and want to also bring out the voice of these the doers of the growth, so these mid-sized companies and their executives. We're really passionate about these mid-sized companies in Finland. We feel that they don't maybe get enough credit or visibility for everything that they do.
Yeah, definitely. Not just in Finland, just pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, there's a general narrative that there's the startups that will save us, and of course the work done in startups is super important, and there's a lot of impressive stories there as well. So it's not undermining that important work at all. And then we have these huge corporations, of course, that are doing their own thing and having the resources that they need. But here in the middle is this middle segment. So for example, in the Growth Collective, we work with mid-sized companies, and for that, for us, it means that they have a revenue of at least 10 million euros a year. I think the median or the average is around 70 million euros. So they're well established, really great companies, some being really world leaders in what they do, but we don't really hear too much about them or know them too well. So we want to boost this part and really believe, I mean, why the Growth Collective was founded was to really also help these, or to see the potential in these companies. They represent less than 1% of companies in Finland, actually, these mid-sized companies, but they have, of course, the revenue is there, they have the work, they have the jobs, so this segment, which is less than 1% of all the companies in Finland, they have 1/4 of the revenue and 1/5 of all the private sector jobs are there.
Crazy.
So they have a huge kind of
impact. Right.
Impact, and kind of from an employer viewpoint. And the idea behind the Growth Collective was that, if we can get a bit more growth and renewal and drive in this segment, it also has a huge benefit for the Finnish society as a whole.
Definitely. And now I'm obviously seeing a common theme in your life, right? So around having the courage to grow. And like, what actions are you taking to grow as an individual?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think, well, more recently I have taken more actions. Again, I have to say that I'm a mother of three small children. So I think the past years has been more focused on them and their growth rather than my own growth. But what I've now do, and for example this year, try to learn from many different fields. I've taken some courses. I've been involved in, so the Aalto University, for example, is doing online course which is free for everyone on radical creativity, which is a very fascinating and interesting topic. And I'm doing that course, and we also have a small group where we meet once a month to discuss the course contents and kind of exchange the ideas from the course. So these types of, getting external inputs to kind of then broaden up your own learning and doing, and making it easier for you to do connections and kind of go forward. That's something I try to keep up.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it seems like you're doing a lot to grow as a person. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's also part of my job, I guess, and I still feel that the Growth Collective, I mean, it's a really unique community of company executives. So I also learn a lot through my work. I get to really be part of very interesting discussions and insights, and when we meet with our members and work with these executives, of course we discuss topics related to growth and renewal and courage and everything related to leading companies. So it's a very interesting kind of platform where you get to work with many companies. We have a network of around 200 companies that we work with. So it offers me also very interesting insights all the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'd like to switch gears a little bit, but it's still on the same vague topic. And I'd love to hear more about how you encourage younger people to grow, particularly through the European Youth Parliament. And like, what capabilities should young people listening to this podcast, for example, be developing? Like, what skills?
So maybe a bit of a background. I mean, the European Youth Parliament is a network I was engaged in for at least 15 years as part of my earlier career, in a way. Before working with companies, I worked with a lot of young people all over Europe. It's a network in roughly 40 European countries, and really youth led. So it's by young people for other young people. Very empowering way to engage and get young people engaged. And I think young people nowadays are really, I mean, amazing on so many levels. So capable, so skilled, so aware, and working with young people is also very rewarding. And seeing that's something that I'm very passionate about, both regarding young people or now with company executives, in a way. To being able to boost other people's capacities and skills, and to help other people learn and flourish, in a way. And that was amazing to be able to do that in the EYP network for so many years. I think one of the kind of key things in the European Youth Parliament network was indeed to foster intercultural dialogue and understanding. So their method was to bring young people from different countries together and enable them to learn to know each other as people, as
Yeah.
other young people, but also learn how to work together on quite pressing topics and political themes. And that was a really powerful thing to do when you have their target group is high school students. So the participants are mostly 16 to 17, maybe 18-year-old young people from all over Europe. And when you're a average 17-year-old, for example, from Finland, you haven't necessarily met anyone like a peer from 15 different countries, like someone from Turkey and someone from Ireland and someone from Azerbaijan maybe, or someone from wherever. You might have traveled for holidays with your family and so on, but you haven't maybe really gotten to know anyone your age from a different culture. And the EYP offers this framework where you really the events usually last for a week or even 10 days, and it's an intense program where you really mix together. You're the only one from your country in your group, and then you get to learn to work with young people from these diverse backgrounds, and it's really eye-opening, I think, for many of the participants, and empowering for them.
Yeah, again, going back to the whole different perspectives from different countries. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. But I want to dig into your frameworks, right? So I want to get a better understanding of what is community commitment model. Like, what does that mean?
The community commitment model is something that we used in the Growth Collective, and it's really it was for us a tool how to realize. So we of course work with people. We work with company executives. They are busy people, and their schedules are really full. So firstly, you have to understand that the time you get with them is very valuable.
Definitely.
And somehow also it puts the pressure on us, because then the added value of that time needs to be there. They need to get value from our network and the sessions that we facilitate for them. And one of the main jobs that we have as who work at the Growth Collective is of course to bring different people together so that they meet each other. Because at the Growth Collective we work, we're a peer-to-peer network, so that's what we do. We bring entrepreneurs together so that they can meet other entrepreneurs, leaders meet other leaders, and then they get to exchange ideas and help each other become world-changing success stories. So that's really the mechanism. And the commitment then is or the community commitment model we used was really a framework to understand what we could ask from our members, these busy company executives, and how we could kind of deepen their connection to our network in the Growth Collective. And it's basically a 4 or 5 step model, depending on what stages you want to see, where you kind of track how actively engaged your members are, from being passive and not active at all to being really leading members of a community. And then I think the main finding of that is that you need to realize that people in different stages of this commitment curve need different things. Right. So that's kind of, your own method to manage what you ask of your members in your community. Do you ask them small things, or can you ask them really big things? Depending on, how committed they are, your asks or the nudges that you kind of ask them to do can grow and become bigger as well.
Okay, it makes
so I think
a
that's
lot of
kind
sense.
of the gist of the
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like very simple, but it makes so much sense,
Yeah, it's
and
kind of,
that's just
just your own analysis of, if you have a group of people or you have a community to try to identify where, in what stage all your members are to be able to kind of
yeah,
then deepen
yeah, yeah,
their
yeah, yeah.
engagement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Very cool. And we've now entered the part of the podcast which I like to call the zigzag zone. Woo!
Okay.
And
Wow.
so I want to know where you are zagging, where everyone else is zigging. So I'd love to hear your take on event planning, and like from the
Okay.
perspective of a participant. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Event planning. Maybe a bit of background there also first.
Mm-hmm.
This is also kind of one of the red threads throughout my career. I have basically worked with event planning in different forms for the past 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
both, big and small, small being, facilitating or running discussions for small groups of
Yeah.
people to then really big events, 10-day events with 300 people from all over Europe. And of course, now also at the Growth Collective, we do a lot of events. And as I said, one of our most important things is to bring people together for them
Yeah.
to be able to discuss and have
Collaborate.
peer-to-peer
Yeah.
collaboration and exchange of ideas. And in terms of events, the question was where I have zigged, where everyone else has sagged. Well, I
Yeah.
think one of the things I've learned, and this is of course something that you learn also with experience, is that
Mm-hmm.
um, a bit of crazy is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bit of
So
chaos.
not necessarily chaos, but
Controlled chaos.
controlled chaos and
Okay.
the element of surprise, I think,
Ah,
is more important.
okay.
So the world is full of seminars and events and
True.
boring things.
Yeah.
And there, I think if you can positively surprise your participants
Mm-hmm.
with providing them with an experience that they couldn't foresee or didn't expect, that's always when you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
So having a surprise element to it, and this is where what I refer to, with a little bit of crazy, doing something out
Yeah.
of the box, a bit unconventional, pushing your participants a little bit to
Yeah.
get out of their comfort zone and try
Okay.
something new. At the Growth Collective, for example, our way of doing events is very interactive. It's very kind of engaging the participants to be a part of the content.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we try to avoid passive listening events as
Yeah.
much as possible,
Definitely.
where the audience is just passively receiving
Mm-hmm.
something. We want really them to be engaged and
Yeah.
as active participants. So I think those are some of the elements that I've learned.
Yeah.
And here
Definitely.
also I mentioned the course on radical creativity, which plays nicely into this part as well, to really try to take a different approach to events. If you're organizing
Mm-hmm.
a seminar or a panel discussion, ask yourself, how can we do this differently,
Yeah.
or
Definitely.
in a way that is not conventional or expected.
Yeah.
So I think with that mindset, you get far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. And now this kind of perfectly leads us into story time.
Okay.
Right. So you said this at the beginning, and how you organized an event for 300 young people, I
Hmm.
believe, from around 40 countries for 10 days in Helsinki. And
Yeah.
that sounds just absolutely insane. So tell me a bit about that. How did that happen?
Yeah, it was quite insane, but
Yeah.
very good insane. So that was a part of the European Youth Parliament network and an event that we organized in Helsinki. The EYP network gathers a few times every year for their main events called international sessions, which are the biggest on the European level and also the longest. So it was 10 days long, really,
Yeah.
and we had young teams from I think nearly 40 countries join us in Helsinki for these 10 days.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience to be part of. I was the project leader or the project manager for the event, and the EYP network works on a voluntary basis. So we work a lot with young volunteers. It's really young people organizing for other young people.
Yeah.
And I think all in all, we were on the project for a couple of years because, of course, it all started from scratch. We had no concept. We had no, or we had maybe a rough concept, but the early stages of planning really involved then a lot of fundraising and setting up partnerships to make the event happen. So we really also needed to get all the funds together to make it happen and allow this experience for these young people. But it was a really great experience.
Sounds really, really interesting. Yeah. Super cool.
I mean, giving young people, and I was young myself, I was in my 20s, myself when I did this, and it's a very empowering experience for young people to get so much responsibility and to really lead such a project. And of course, you were quite a steep learning curve as well. There were things we had to really learn how to navigate and change on the go. You can have a perfect plan where everything is really thought through and well organized in advance, but then things happen and you have to change on the go.
Change the plan,
Change the plans on the go and be agile about it and be, just find solutions in the moment. So that was definitely a great experience for that.
Definitely.
And then also leading a big team throughout this 2-year planning process. We started with a smaller core team, but at the end I think we had over 30 volunteers work on the project and during the event, of course, which I'm very passionate about. So it was very well aligned with that as well.
And sadly, we're coming to the end of the podcast, but I have 3 final questions for you.
Okay.
So imagine it's 2035. What does your life look like?
I would hope it looks a lot like today. I don't see any need for any big changes. The kids are, of course, older, more grown up, a bit more independent, which is good. And I think that opens up potential for me as well, to then focus a lot more on myself again and do things that I'm passionate about. But in 10 years time, let's hope
I like it. Very
stays
simple,
healthy,
very nice.
and
Of course, of course. And then how can listeners follow along with your journey?
Well, you can follow me on LinkedIn, and you can, of course, also follow the Growth Collective on LinkedIn if you want to have more updates on what the most courageous companies in Finland are up to. I think that's the best channel to find me.
Definitely. And then last question, how can listeners be useful to you?
It would be lovely if you're in touch. I love good conversations, love to hear about different people, connections. Also in my current job at the Growth Collective, of course, it's a lot about finding these connections and finding interesting people that we could connect our members to. We really believe in kind of building an ecosystem and, having a broad network help each other, because I strongly believe that kind of together we are stronger, and by enlarging our networks we can find really interesting connections and help that we might need. So I would be thrilled to just meet with new people.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I'm really looking forward to following along with your journey and obviously the Growth Collective's journey as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, follow us on your favourite podcasting app. Do consider leaving a review as it helps the podcast tremendously.